Well, hello everyone. This is Robert Sophia, your host for today's Twitter WebEx. And first of all, please allow me to thank you very much for joining us. We're happy that you took some time out of your day to view this WebEx, and we're going to do our best to make sure that it turns out to be a valuable use of your time. So my name is Robert Sophia. I'm one of the founders here at Platinum Advisor Strategies and the Platinum Web Strategies as well. This WebEx today is part of a webinar series on the place for social media in financial advisors practice today. We started out with Social Media 101, then we went to Facebook, LinkedIn, now Twitter. We did one on compliance, and soon we'll be doing one final part in the series on YouTube. So all of the replays are available on our website, platinumstrategies.com, and this one will be recorded as well. So if you decide to share it with anyone in your office, by all means, please feel free to do so. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We'd like to mention that this is being recorded, so we won't take your questions during the course of the WebEx, but feel free to use the chat features of WebEx or the ask a question and answer, raise your hand, use any of those features that you like, and we'll be sure to take all of your questions, as many as we have time for at the end. This WebEx should be about 30 to 40 minutes in length. A little shorter than some of the others because there's not as much to talk about with Twitter. It's fairly straightforward. But we're going to cover today the basics of getting started with Twitter, some of the reasons why you should be using Twitter, and some best practices for advisors as well. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, we're going to take just a minute here, and we're going to outline the value of Twitter. For one thing, the Twitter user base, by and large, is a higher income base than the general population. So typically, you will find more affluent prospects on Twitter than you will just as you're making your way through the general population with general broad-based marketing techniques. So that's one reason. The second reason to use Twitter is because of the age group. The majority of Twitter users are between 25 and 54 years of age, so this is an excellent way to engage the next generation of clients. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the research about the trends in our industry, the billions that are going to be inherited, and I think it's trillions actually, by Generation X and Generation Y as they get that from their baby boomer parents. So this is a good way for you to engage with them, show them that you're tech savvy, and keep those assets in your firm as the next generation comes into their own. Not to mention, a considerable number of Generation X prospects are starting to build wealth of their own, and this is one of their preferred communication methods. So Twitter is of value in that respect. Another reason is just because of the perception of businesses that use Twitter. It's a very mainstream thing to do. Now, I'm not saying just because 77% of the world's 100 largest companies use Twitter that you should, but it does send a powerful message about you. Also, as you'll notice, media outlets are the most active users, which is great for you as an advisor if you're trying to get the attention of the media, get published in publications, in various financial industry journals or mainstream publications. This gives you a phenomenal way to engage the media, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. And I've actually personally had some good success with that, and I'll share some tactics with you. So these are just a few reasons to use Twitter. But I want to take it a step further, and I just want to share a couple things with you. You have to think about who your clients are watching. Okay, they're watching CNBC. Now, last night I was listening to Squawk, or not Squawk, what's the one at the end of the day? I forget. It comes on at, not the halftime report, that's midday, and now I'm drawing a blank. But at the end of the day on CNBC at 5 o'clock, there's a program that comes on, and they had a whole segment of about 15 minutes in length all about StockTwits, which is a company that basically uses Twitter information to help with investment choices. I mean, think about that, because it's a way to keep your finger on the pulse of what the general population is talking about. Twitter actually moves markets. Think about that. And so your clients are watching CNBC. They hear people talking about Twitter. They see that Squawk Box is on Twitter. They see that Joe Kernan's on Twitter, and Becky Quick is on Trigger, and Andrew Ross Sorkin is on Twitter. And these are the talking heads. Suze Orman's on Twitter, right? All these people that they look to and respect. So when you as an advisor are on Twitter, that sends a good message about you that you're also a thought leader. And furthermore, your competition is on Twitter. This is Merrill Lynch, their Twitter profile. Here's Morgan Stanley's Twitter profile, Charles Schwab's Twitter profile. And so ultimately, you have to acknowledge if the industry pundits are there, if your competition is there, if the next generation of clients are there, if the average income of people using Twitter is higher than the general population, you add all those things up, and basically what you get is a strong case for using Twitter. And so that's a good reason for you to at least take some time and consider if it will fit into your practice. I'm going to try to give you some basic steps to get started today. First of all, let's talk about actually setting up your profile. Okay, that's not hard to do. I'll walk you through a lot of the key steps today. To do that, I'm going to actually navigate over to Twitter for a second. I'm going to show you, first of all, here's Robert Frost's profile. Now, Rob, as you probably know, is one of my business partners here at Platinum. And there's a few key elements of his profile as an advisor that I want to share with you. First of all, we have a nice picture here, a nice background. It matches the look of his office. Okay, Twitter is a nice hybrid profile where you can have a little bit of a personal and a little bit of a professional presence mixed together. If you were on our WebExes about Facebook, that's a social media tool that's used primarily for personal interactions, although there are business uses as well. LinkedIn is primarily for business interactions. And then Twitter is something you can use for both. And so what you'll notice here about Rob's profile is we have a nice professional shot that dominates the profile. Many of his tweets are related to industry news. Here's one on the economy. Here is one just useful for his clients about traveling. Here's one about GDP, home sales. But then also there's personal things. This is one that he tweeted from his smartphone about golf. So it's a nice mixture. You've got the ability to share images. That's important. Photos and videos get much higher engagement. We'll address some things to tweet here in a little bit. But you can see those profiled here. One of the things you'll also notice when you're setting up your profile is pick a nice professional headshot or a nice professional image or personal image that shows you as friendly and personable. Sometimes people use just a symbol here or a logo, which is fine for a business page, but people are going to see this in their stream, and they want to look at it and see this is a friendly person. Now, you can tell Rob's got a picture of him with his wife because this is his personal Twitter also. Okay, and that's fine. You'll notice here he's got a nice description of himself. I'm going to show you Sally Krawcheck's profile in a little bit. You'll see something interesting about that. But it tells who he is. He's a family man. He's a twin. He's a financial advisor. Right? It shows where he is, and it has a link directly to his company website. So you can see it's a hybrid of that personal and professional approach, and that's a good way to set up your profile. It's not difficult to do. In fact, when you go into your settings, okay, this is when you're logged into Twitter, once you do some basic steps, this is where you can edit your profile. And what you'll find here is you can select your photo, make sure you're zoomed in enough where people can see your face. You also have the ability to select a background or what's called a header image. That's what you'll see if you go to my profile page. You'll notice here this is the header image. So you have really your avatar, your icon, which is your face here, and then you've got your header image, and then you can also have a background image. So very simple, not hard to set up. One of the things that's nice about it is it allows you to upload those, crop them, move them around, very simple. And then you put your name in, your location, your website, and your bio. And this bio is short. It's only about 160 characters. You don't want to put your disclosures in here unless your broker-dealer says you have to. This is a place to introduce yourself. It really should, similar to your LinkedIn headline, which we discussed in a previous WebEx, it should tell who you are. And it should be, again, that mix of personal and professional. So that's what you see here as well. You can connect Twitter to Facebook so that every time you post on Twitter, it also posts on Facebook. I don't recommend that. Unless you're very, if you don't use social media a lot and you're going to post, once a week or something like that, that's fine. But the frequency of Twitter and the purpose is a little different. So I really recommend keeping them separate, just as a side point there. Also, one of the things that you want to do when you set up your profile is you want to modify your account information, okay, with various, key elements, like your time zone, okay, and then it has ways for you to personalize Twitter a little bit, some of your security features and whatnot. It's not complicated, okay? Just walk through and check those things out. But one of the things you want to definitely spend some time with, okay, that's your email notifications. So make sure you go in and you do check these settings carefully, and here's why. If you want to engage with people on Twitter, if you want prospects to be able to contact you on Twitter, let's say you say something really interesting, a prospect is following you, and you want them to be able to email you and ask you a question, or you want to be notified when there's people talking about you or to you, you need to make sure these settings are properly done. So you want to make sure that you're notified, emailed when certain things happen. Okay? You can select when somebody favorites one of your tweets, when you're mentioned by someone, when someone retweets you, whether it's someone you follow or anyone, so you can select the level of engagement you want. I recommend when you're first getting started, have this pretty aggressive, so that pretty much any time you're mentioned or retweeted by anyone that you're hearing about it, because it'll give you a chance to see how much action you're really getting, and then you can always pare this back later if you want to. So that's what I'm doing here. Notify me by email when any of these things happen. So I'm just changing my settings from a little conservative to a little more aggressive. And then, again, you have more additional options. People can direct message you. You have the ability to get news and updates from Twitter. So this kind of stuff can be a little bit annoying. You know, you're busy already, so I don't usually recommend being alerted to these types of things. And if you don't want a weekly digest, you can update these types of things. So you see, this is the idea. Just make sure your settings are configured so that people can reach you. Because that's ultimately your hopes. It's about having conversations. So you want people to reach out to you, and you want to be able to reach out to them. As a side point also, when it comes to design, you can choose one of the pre-made themes. I don't recommend doing that. And one of the reasons this is so important to customize your Twitter profiles, here's what's basically going to happen. Somebody comes across your Twitter page, or you introduce yourself to them on Twitter, which is probably the more likely thing that will happen, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. You tweet, you comment, you incorporate them into one of your tweets, they go check you out. Now, they're going to decide whether to follow you or not, based on how interesting you look to them. Now, if you use a pre-made theme, how interesting do you think you're going to look to them? They're going to look at this and they're going to say, well, this is not a person who is really engaged on Twitter. So have a custom background. Have a custom header photo. Have a nice professional picture. Spend some time writing your bio so that when they review your profile at a glance, that they will think you're interesting. Now, there's no guarantee, but the more effort you put into this, the more likely it is that they will follow you back. And that's what you want. So set up your profile for success. And if you'd like some assistance with actually setting up your Twitter backgrounds or your images so they'll be the right size and they'll fit and they'll look good and they'll scale on different screen sizes, we will be more than happy to help you set up your profile here at Platinum. Just call us or email us, visit our website, and we'll help you with that. Okay, so that's number one. Get your profile set up. Now, once your profile is set up, this is the foundation. It looks good, right? Now you're going to go out and start introducing yourself to people. Now, believe it or not, the best way to get followers on Twitter is to follow others and to engage with others, to be proactive. And if you've set up your profile properly, then when you mention them in your tweets and they go look at your profile, hopefully they'll follow you back. So before you expect to be followed, first be a follower. That's a simple kind of rule of etiquette with Twitter. So how do you do that? Well, there's a number of ways to find people to follow. Twitter actually has some nice features built in. Now, up here at the top, you'll see there's this little menu bar, right? There's your home. That's where I am right now. This is my home when I log into Twitter. Then there's Connect and Discover, okay? So if I go to Connect, this is a way I interact with people that I'm already connected to. We'll talk about this in a minute. And then there's Discover, which this is how I broaden my horizons. Now, what you'll see here is under Discover, I'm looking for people to follow, right? So there's this little interesting menu icon, Who to Follow. Now, when I click on Who to Follow, it's going to recommend people to me. So this is based on people that I've already followed. Okay, and we'll share with you how to do that in a minute. But this is, once you've followed a few people, it will start to tell you who else you should be following. Now, notice, Here's a CNBC reporter I am not following. I will follow her. Here's the senior editor at Investment News. I will follow him. Here's Sallie Krawcheck. This is what I was talking about earlier. It's interesting. I know you probably know who she is, but look at her little profile headline here. Very personalized, isn't it? Research analyst, current mom, crazed UNC basketball fan. This is what I'm talking about with that personal professional bridge. And notice her profile picture. It's very friendly. She has a nice smile on her face. So this is an example of a good practice here. So I'll follow her. Reuters Top News. Let's see. So here's the senior editor at CNBC. So you get the idea. Follow people that are interesting to you first. Also, you have this popular accounts section. Remember, this is under Discover, so you've got popular accounts. Now, what are you into? Music, sports, entertainment. Well, if it's for personal use, probably some of this. Why not? Right? This is suggesting 84 people here, 99 here. So scroll down through. Now, when you get to news, technology, here's where you get into the business categories. Business. So if you click on these, it's going to suggest businesses for you to follow. So you've got a number of sections here, and notice you'll see I've already done this personally. So this has you'll see where I'm already following many of these news outlets and business leaders. But here's Dave Ramsey. I think I'll follow him. You get the idea again. So go through here, follow people. That's the leading first line of people to follow. But now what you want to do is you want to get deeper with it. Okay, don't just follow the general businesses, the general talking heads. Twitter has some really awesome search functionality. Because what you really want to do, if you're thinking about prospecting, is you want to narrow your selection to get to people who are in your community as well, business leaders and others in your community. So here's just a couple things you might want to take note of. Twitter allows you to put these little search terms in that will help you narrow it down and find people in your area. Here's an example. This is one. You can use the little expression near, okay, and put a colon, near. Now in my case, I'll write Orlando, Florida. This is a local metropolitan area near me, right? You can put the name of your city if you'd like, near Orlando, Florida. Now notice what else I can do. I can put a space. I can type within. I'll put a little colon, and I'll do 50 miles. Look at that. So now I've searched for people near Orlando, Florida within 50 miles of it. Now this will allow me to go through and see who is included in that little search that I did. Now, this is going to be very broad. I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people within Orlando, Florida. But still, maybe you're in a small town. You can follow everybody in your town. Wouldn't that be something? Then you start to engage with them a little bit. But here in this case, I'm going to narrow it down. I'm going to say business, anybody that's talking about business near Orlando, Florida. Now, here's what else I get. And I can scan through and I can look for people that appear interesting, and I can follow them. Or I could type in finance. I could do the same thing. See who's talking about finance near Orlando, Florida, and find people to follow. Or entrepreneurs, or CPAs, or taxes, just about any search that I want to. And then you can do the same thing with personal interests. So let's say that you're into wine. Now I'm going to just narrow this down. I'm going to change this from Orlando, Florida to Ocala, Florida, which is actually the city that I live in personally. And I'm going to say who's talking about wine in Ocala, Florida. And here we go. Now I have people within 50 miles of my city, and I can even narrow this down. I could say within 5 miles if I want to. So you can get pretty targeted with it that are talking about wine. And here are some examples. This is a local business. This is a local promotional community for things happening in our city. Other people, who's talking about wine in my community. So I can find these people. Now I have similar interests. Who's talking about golf? Who's talking about food? Who's talking about wine? Who's talking about football? And then start to find people to follow. So Twitter is actually pretty powerful for this type of purpose. And we'll talk about some other ways to discover, but all we're really addressing right now is building up your follower list. Spend a little time doing that, and then once you start using the news feed on a daily basis to see what these people are saying, hopefully then you can engage with them and start conversations. And we'll share with you how to do that in just a moment. So that's step 2. Step 1, set up your profile. Step 2, find people to follow. Now, if you're going to get on Twitter and start using it, you probably need to understand what people are talking about. And you're going to see these little symbols and little expressions there that you might not be familiar with, and there's probably more of them than I'm going to spend time with today, but I'm going to give you some of the basic ones, okay? First of all, when you see the @ symbol on Twitter, followed by a name, like in my case, my handle, that's what this is called, my Twitter handle is @RobertSofia, all one word. Then we have @Platinum Strategies, @Frost and Frost, right, and whatever that handle is, you set that up when you become a member. That's your Twitter username. Okay, that's what that is, but it's also your Twitter handle. So when you are using Twitter and you want to reference somebody, you use their handle. You use their username this way. And when you put that @ symbol in, Twitter immediately knows that you want to talk to someone. For example, if I go here to Twitter to compose a tweet, and I put the @ symbol in, and I just type the letter A, notice what it does. It immediately pulls up people that I'm following so I can reference them in my conversation. So Andrew Hinkle, there he is. He's our Vice President of Sales here at Platinum. So you see an example of that, right? And then you have, if I did the same thing with @B, now I'll see the people with B that I'm following, and so on. Now, by the way, just as a side note here, well, you know what? I'll save that. I don't want to digress. So let me go back. So that's first of all. Secondly, you will sometimes see this DM. Okay, that is direct message. So if you don't want to send something out to the whole Twitter universe, and you want to still address one person, you can do that by typing DM. So similarly, if I type DM and then the name of the person that I want to tweet, well, having issues here. Well, anyway, if you see DM, sorry, that's the problem with the live WebEx. Sometimes it doesn't always respond the way you expect it to. But if you see DM, that means direct message. Another element of Twitter here that you can use for this is if you want to find somebody that you're following. For example, I'll just type in here Andrew's name. Let's say I'm going to send him a message. I'll pull up his profile. Now I have this little icon here, and I can just click send a direct message to Andrew and do it that way as well. But a DM is a direct message. Secondly, retweet. Now this is something that you'll see fairly common. If you see a tweet and it has an RT in front of it, that means it was not originally composed by that person. It was composed by someone else. They retweeted it. So for example, I'll just go to my news feed here for a second. And if I scroll down, I'm sure there'll be a retweet in here somewhere. Let's see. Here we go. Here's one. CNBC. So you might see this occasionally. CNBC's closing bell. There we go. That's that name I was thinking about before. They retweeted PIMCO. Okay, that's what they did. They retweeted PIMCO. So when you read this, what you're seeing is this is not originally from CNBC, but rather from PIMCO, and they're just sharing it again. Okay, so that's what a RT is, a retweet. Another piece of Twitter lingo that you want to be familiar with is the hashtag. This is very important because this is one of the tools that you can use on Twitter to search and that people will also use to search for you, to discover what people are discussing at any given time. So notice here, here's a hashtag in that same tweet for the Fed. Here's one for Summers, right? So if I were to click on a hashtag, which people often do, or sometimes they will search for them directly. See, I can search for any hashtag, right? Whatever might be up for discussion right now. Again, like that hashtag with the Fed, I could search for that. Or I can click on it. What's going to happen is everybody that's using that hashtag, all the recent tweets with that hashtag are going to come up. So now notice, who else is talking about the Fed? Well, CNBC, Invesco, Squawk, PIMCO, Putnam. Now, could your name be here in a conversation about the Fed? What if a potential investor goes and looks for information on the Fed? Could they potentially see you here providing thought leadership on the topic? Yes, if you use the hashtag. No, if you do not. And that's the reason to use hashtags, is because it allows other people to find you and find that conversation and join that conversation. One side point, sometimes you might go to an event like a conference or something like that, and they might say, oh, a hashtag for this event is whatever. Or you might be watching the Super Bowl and they say hashtag for this is, right? And then you use that hashtag in your tweet. Well, now everybody else talking about that is in the conversation with you, because you can set your news feed to display any comments or tweets with those hashtags. And now everybody else is seeing that and you're engaging with one another. So this is a nice feature of Twitter. Next, one more piece of Twitter lingo is the MT, or the modified tweet. So occasionally, let's say you're on Twitter and you want to retweet something, but it's too long. When you add your comment to the introduction, or you retweet it, now it has that RT in there, it's too long, so you have to delete a word or two. Well, it's proper etiquette to put MT, or modified tweet, which means you basically shortened it so that it would fit into the character limit that Twitter has. Another one, just as a little safety precaution, if you see this, NSFW, that means not safe for work. Don't open it in the presence of anyone else especially, or you might get embarrassed. So be careful with NSFW. And there's a myriad of other things, but these are some of the basic ones that we want you to be familiar with. So now let's put all that into practice. If you're composing a tweet, what might it look like? Well, it could just be plain text, but probably, if you want to really engage with the Twitter community and do it right, you'll include hashtags and Twitter handles addressing other individuals. So here's an example of a sample tweet that I just composed for the demonstration purposes, right? So I'm giving a live Twitter hashtag, right? Training for financial advisors hashtag. If you're missing it, you can watch the replay via @PlatinumAdvisory. There's our handle for Platinum tomorrow. And if I had more characters, I could put the website in or whatever else I'd like. So interestingly, Financial Advisors is a fairly active hashtag. So if you're looking for information or conversations about financial advisors, you can search for that. And this is another way to find people that you might like to follow. Let's see, who's talking about financial advisors? This might give you some good thought leadership from the industry. Actually, here's Platinum talking about financial advisors. By the way, if you didn't see this headline, this was really interesting. Advisor landed a $70 million account on LinkedIn. So think back to our LinkedIn WebEx. That's another social media tool that really can pay off in many cases. So anyway, you get the idea there with what's involved in composing a tweet. Let's actually go through, though, and let's talk about on a daily basis how you might use Twitter. Okay, so let's go back to Twitter, and I'm going to share a few things with you. First of all, when you log into Twitter, what you're basically going to see is your news feed, okay? This is going to show you everybody that you're following, what they're tweeting. That's what you're going to see here, okay? So these are all of the different outlets that I'm following who's tweeted recently. You see, it's a real-time conversation. That's what Twitter is. It's very, very real-time. See, 29 seconds ago, this was tweeted. 36 seconds ago. Now, this one was tweeted on July 24th. What's interesting is this was promoted. So this is basically an ad. And this is something that you have the ability to do. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But look, 59 seconds ago, 1 minute ago, scrolling down. So think of Twitter this way. When you feel like joining the conversation, you get in and you join the conversation. You see what people are talking about. When you don't feel like joining the conversation, don't worry about it. It's going to keep happening whether you're there or not, all the time. But occasionally, maybe you drop in, and if you're following people that are interesting to you, there's a good chance that what you see here is going to be interesting to you. It's almost like walking into a room with all your most interesting friends, all the people you most enjoy listening to, and you see what are they talking about right now. If you could hear all the conversations going on. And also what you'll see is what's trending on Twitter. You might have heard that expression before, what's trending. That's what you see here. The most popular topics. Notice one of the topics right now is social media. So I would bet there's probably a social media conference going on right now. Here's everybody that's talking about social media and what they're saying. So as soon as you log in, that's one of the things that you can do is just follow the conversation. And when you see something that's interesting, you can click on it, you can retweet it, reply to it, or favorite it. Now let's talk about these features for just a second. Let me find something that's actually interesting to me. Let's see. This looks interesting. Facebook for financial advisors. Look at that. Reg Ed Arkovi. So that's an interesting topic. So let me just check this out. So I'm going to click on the link. Now if I had time, I would probably sit here and I would read this article. But I don't have time, so I'm just going to scan this for illustrations purposes. Here are some interesting topics. I see some value in this. So what I'm going to do, briefly, let's say I read the whole article and I'm confident that I want to endorse it. First of all, I'll retweet it. Now what's going to happen is Reg Ed Arkovi, right, they're going to now see that I retweeted this. So when they're scanning Twitter, they're going to know that they have my attention. That's one. Now what I could do is I could reply to this, right, and I could say something like this. Thank you for sharing such great content about social media, hashtag, right, for hashtag financial advisors. Now, I don't know who wrote that article. There was a lady mentioned there. I should probably mention her too, but I don't have time. This is just for illustrations purposes. Now, what will probably happen, I've just done something polite, all right? I have thanked them for what they did. They will probably see this, and at some point they'll respond, and they'll say thank you to me. Now, if I hope to build my follower base, there's a really good chance, because I've spent some time setting up my profile and it's professional and I've branded myself as a financial industry insider, then maybe Reg Ed Arkovi will follow me back. And then when I tweet something about social media for financial advisors, because they're following me, they'll see it and they'll share it. So this is one simple way to engage on Twitter. Another option here is for me to favorite this tweet, which I'm going to do because I want to go back and read it later since I just endorsed it. Now, favoriting is kind of like a liking on Facebook, you could say, only Twitter will actually archive all your favorite tweets and you can go back in and look at them anytime, which is nice. And other people can dig a little deeper and see what you favorited. So bear that in mind. If you favorite something that's vulgar or inappropriate for business, other people can see that. But now I've favorited something here. People can see that. I can go back and review this later. So I showed you how to retweet. I showed you how to reply. And also, other things you can do, if you see something interesting, you can always email it to a specific contact, or you can embed it on your website or in a web page, which I don't see any reason why you'd want to do. But you do have those options. So that's one thing to do. Get in and join the conversation. Another thing that you want to do on Twitter is this little feature right here, which is connecting with people. So you can wait for the email alerts to come to you that say, hey, somebody just mentioned you on Twitter, or somebody just retweeted you. Okay, you can wait for those emails. What I do, though, and what a lot of people that use Twitter frequently and don't want to bombard their email inbox, right? So remember, I just changed all those notifications a few minutes ago and showed you how to be alerted by email, but that gets annoying at some point. So when you become regular with Twitter, you can log in and just look at your interactions. Now here's what this is. This is where you see connect, right? Now I can see every single interaction that has occurred on Twitter that involves me. Now here are two. Somebody in my office, probably in the other room listening to this WebEx here at Platinum, has retweeted or has composed two tweets, rather, quoting things that I've said during this WebEx. So this is an example. Now I can reply to them, and I can say thank you for sharing my tweet, but that's a little self-serving since it's my company, so I'm not going to do that. But I can see other people, like I responded to this tweet by Rosemary Smith, who's a coach in Canada, a financial industry coach. So I responded to that, and she responded back to me. So that's what you see here. See, she retweeted something that I posted about instituting an account minimum size. See, I can see where she retweeted that. I responded and said thank you. I can view the whole conversation here, right? Here's my response. Thanks for sharing. How's business? Rosemary responded back. Hi, Robert. Really enjoying coaching, and business is fantastic. Now, I can respond right here if I want to, right? So glad to hear that. Thanks for all you do. Very good. Now, see, guys, this is social media. It's about being social. Twitter is not a forum for you to advertise. Does it work as a form of advertisement? Yes. Is that the purpose? No. It is a social tool. You will only get real benefits from it if you engage with people. That's how you build relationships. It's networking 101. As a side point to that, yes, Platinum will set up your profile. Yes, we will tweet daily for you. But that's just one tweet a day. And that's just to keep your profiles active and to look like they're alive, right? Because if somebody gets to your Twitter page and it looks like you haven't tweeted in 2 months, that's a bad thing. And if you get busy, you don't have to worry, we're still tweeting for you. But you can't rely just on that. You've got to use these opportunities to engage people. Another thing I can see here when I click the Connect page is anybody new that's followed me. So here I have an example. I can see all these people that followed me. Now, I don't have a clue who Bad Pecan is, but I'm not interested. Okay, so this is what people do on Twitter. I see this, they followed me. Do I want to follow them back? No. They have 32 followers. They're not very popular. They're already following 119 people. They only have 20 tweets. You know what? I don't want to follow them. They're not established. I don't want to waste my time reading their tweets yet. Who's Battlefin? Let's see. A global seeding tournament to democratically identify the best liquid investment strategies. Not really my thing. Okay, not going to follow them. Who's this person? Right? Here's a best-selling author, top 50 Twitter financial influencers. She has 45,000 followers. You know what? I'm already following her, so I must have done this already. You get the idea. So this is how you can go in and see what's happening. Here's somebody else who retweeted something that I posted, and you can engage and start the conversations. This is how you use Twitter. Compose your tweets. Get in here. Follow new people. It will recommend new people for you to follow right here. And then check the trends. Check the interactions. Click on the Discover tab. One of the things that's really nice is Twitter has these complicated algorithms that will actually figure out what you're interested in. Right? What are you tweeting already? Who are you following already? What are you viewing, clicking on, and commenting on? And then they will recommend things for you. This is like a customized news feed of what's happening in the world and in your community. So again, very, very useful tool. Just some of the basics for you. I know we could talk about this for hours, but just to get you started, those are the basics of using Twitter. Do what I just did 2 or 3 times a day, or once a day to start if that's all you can do. If you can manage, though, to log in, like we talked about in past WebExes, if you have your 15 minutes at the beginning of the day and your 15 minutes at the end of the day to log in and check your social media accounts, that's all it takes. 5 minutes on Twitter, 5 minutes on LinkedIn, 5 minutes on Facebook. That's it. Check who's interacted with you, post a few tweets, retweet a few things. Do it at lunchtime, do it at the end of the day. If you can. 2 to 3 tweets a day is plenty. Okay, I personally probably only tweet once or twice a day max. That's okay. Now, you can do more, but you have more important things to do. Our purpose here is not to make you really reliant on Twitter, but just to get you to use it enough to have a presence, to see what conversations are happening, and to show that you are on the edge of technology. One of the best ways to help you do this is to use the mobile applications. Whether you use an iPhone, BlackBerry, Android device, they all have Twitter apps. Download that. It will make the process much simpler for you. Here are some tips about using Twitter. Here, let's go through a few of these. Follow industry leaders, locals, and your competition. I think I just showed you how to do that. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll provide more training for you. When you're on Twitter, don't be afraid to share non-business related items. Things that are useful, interesting, inspirational. It doesn't have to be all business. We showed that to you as well. So anything that's important to you, there's a good chance it'll be important to somebody else. At the same time, though, we want to caution you, don't use it as a platform to always talk about yourself. Share non-business related items, okay? Talk about your business as well. But the best thing you can do on Twitter is to promote the heck out of others. Reply to other people, retweet their content, and if you do talk about yourself, make sure that it's something useful and relevant, not just self-promotion. That's a very, very important element of using Twitter. Use it to promote your client events, anything you've written, anything like that about your business. It is a good chance to invite people to events, so use it for that. And again, don't worry about reading every tweet. That news feed, if you could be glued to that thing 24 hours a day, just budget some time, put it in your calendar. I actually have a reminder that comes with every day at 4 o'clock reminding me to tweet. So you should have the same thing for yourself, one little budgeted piece of time, and use that. And then once you've done this, start putting your Twitter handle on everything. Put it on your business card, put it on your website, put it on your brochure. So here's an example. If you go to frostandfrost.com here, this is one of the websites that we built through our Web Strategies program. My business partners here at Frost & Frost, they have this prominently displayed at the top of their page. We're actually in the process of making these icons a little bit larger, but nonetheless, clients can immediately link to their Twitter page and see what they are posting. Okay, so you definitely want to start using this. Put it in your seminar presentations. Put it everywhere that your clients or prospects might see it. Now, here's what I'm going to kind of wrap up with, and then we're going to do a bunch of questions. I want you to be patient. Okay, if you get nothing else out of this, and you go and you start doing some of these things, remind yourself, Robert said it would take me some time to really get Twitter. All right, here's what you're going to experience. First of all, if you haven't already felt this way, maybe you do feel this way, I don't know. You might even still feel this way once you set up your profile. I felt this way at one point as well. This is so stupid. I have no idea what to tweet about. I don't get it. That's phase one. It's pretty much that way for everybody. If you feel that way, don't worry, you're not alone. Then you're going to keep trying if you're committed to the process, and you're going to say, well, I'm trying to do this, but I still don't get it. And it's boring. This doesn't make any sense. Right? That's probably going to be phase two for you. But here's what will happen. If you stick with it, at some point, somebody's going to retweet you, or they're going to favorite something that you put out there. And then you're going to realize, hey, this works. Somebody's going to mention you. You're going to get an email. You know, I set up the Twitter profiles for Rob and Tom about a year ago. And all of a sudden, when they started getting messages from clients and prospects on Twitter, and by the way, they work in a retirement community. I don't know if you know that, but the practice that they run is in a retirement community. So their average client is 60 years old. And they started getting messages from clients. Clients started retweeting their commentaries and videos. And then they realized, hey, this has value. And you're going to get to a point where you're going to say, you know what, that felt good. I realize now there's some value in Twitter. If you keep at it, suddenly you're going to start to have fun. You're going to start to realize there's value. You're going to have questions. You know, sometimes I put out on Twitter, hey, I'm looking for a new software for this. Anybody have any recommendations? You ask questions. People reply. They give you their insights. They share their recommendations. You start to like your community. I think I follow something like, let's see here. It's not that large. Let's see. On my profile, I'm only following 1,000 people. So I'm following 994. I have 1,600 followers. These 994 people are all business leaders, financial industry insiders, and friends. And when I ask for help, I get it. And I love the ability to have that real-time interaction with other experts. And so that's one of the things that I've found is I get a lot of help from Twitter. And by the way, a little Twitter lingo there. If you've never heard of a tweep, that's somebody that you're connected with on Twitter that you follow or that follows you back. They're called tweeps. And finally, at some point, then you go, you know what, I love Twitter. You can get addicted to it. You might find yourself tweeting in the car. Don't do it. It's really dangerous. So just be careful. It does have an addictive quality to it. And there is business value as well. Don't just take my word for it. Get out there, do some reading, do some research, try it yourself, and I guarantee you will perceive the value in a little bit of time. So in conclusion, this was the 5th WebEx that we've done on social media. There's one more. It's on YouTube. That's going to be on August 22nd at 3 p.m. And we encourage you to follow us, please, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. If you have any questions about our social media platform, we do a lot of this work for you. We continuously educate our members. If you're already a Platinum Web Strategies member, we're thrilled to have you on board. Don't worry, this is not going to be the last time we do this type of educational program, and you can connect with us through any of these channels. So thank you very much for your participation. I hope you see the value in Twitter. I hope we'll have the opportunity to support you further. And at this time, we're going to stop the recording, but we are going to continue to take your questions. So if you have any questions at all about